Hello, extra time.
It's time to the league not to get a hype because it damages your reputation. It makes people, when they read it, just laugh at you.
Simple look, they're playing in the League One and they're playing in the Europa League and they're credit to the game in this country. Maybe we should get Stephen Kenny down to manage the Irish team.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the ExtraTime.com podcast. Your host, Luke Jordan. Delighted to say Donal, Ryan and Aisling Hannon with me. Guys, where are we?
What's the crack, lads?
Hi, Luke. Hi, Donal.
Later on, we're chatting to Brian Morrisroe about his career and Pats and Rovers, the big game this Friday night. But before we touch on that, a quick word on the Premier Division results from last weekend. Said UCD 1, Cork City 0, Bows 2, Pats 3, game of the weekend in my eyes. Shells 2, Shamrock Rovers 2, Sligo Rovers 1, Drogheda United 1, and Dundalk 2, Derry City 2. Donal, it's a quick word on Sligo Rovers. I suppose last instance we chatted, forms kind of dropped a slight bit. Would you be slightly concerned, or what do you think has happened at the moment?
Inconsistency is just the name of the game in Sligo at the minute, Luke. And, it seems like it's kind of one step forward and maybe two steps back for Sligo Rovers at the moment. Great performance in Dundalk a couple of weeks ago to 2-1 win, last minute winner. Everyone's delighted, and then go up to Shelbourne and honestly played Shelbourne off the park in the first half. Went in at half time 1-0 up, and deservedly so. Danny Lafferty getting his first goal and his first start for the club, and then Shelbourne just kind of dug their heels in the second half, and Rovers just didn't really show up. And then a 1-1 draw in the latest result against Drogheda in the showgrounds. A frustrating result, I'd say, because I'd say John Russell was targeting that game as getting 3 points on the board. There's a full round of fixtures gone now, and like Rovers sitting in sixth in the table. Like the table doesn't lie, and no doubt he would have been hoping that Rovers would be pushing up a bit further than where they are at the minute. But with that said, the conditions in the showgrounds on Saturday night were absolutely abysmal. There was torrential rain from start to finish. There's only a crowd of about 2,300, which is fairly low for Sligo. The crowds have been up a lot this year, averaging I think in around 2,500 for attendances. And like I wasn't there myself, but I was told that people were leaving at half time just because they couldn't cope with how bad the rain was. And so, like I said, you can blame the weather all you want, but one worrying thing that is coming to the fore is in 10 games, they're the only team in the league that hasn't kept a clean sheet yet. And they're scoring goals, and teams aren't exactly cutting through Sligo Rovers at the moment. But goals are being put up on plates for teams. Like you saw the horrific own goal up in Talca Park. You couldn't script that. And just the way Rovers are conceding goals at the minute, I'd say that's the biggest worry that John Russell has at the moment.
Yeah, and they have a big game this Saturday night now, especially playing UCD.
Yeah, and UCD have been a tricky test for Sligo Rovers in the last couple of years. They took 4 points out of the showgrounds last season, a 2-2 draw and a 2-0 win in the showgrounds in their 2 games up there last year. So, no doubt it'll be another tough test for Sligo Rovers. I mean, I know UCD are bottom of the table, but their tails will be up. A big win against Cork, who are right down there with them this season. So, they'll be coming in with a bit of confidence, and like I said, their tails will be up. And they've always caused Sligo Rovers trouble of late, especially in the last kind of season or two that they've been in the Premier Division. So definitely won't be as straightforward as it seems for Sligo Rovers this Saturday, I don't think.
Yeah, and like you said, UCD obviously a big win in their first win of the season against Cork City, scored within 1 minute and managed to hold on. I suppose from Colin Healy's point of view, though, he'd be very disappointed with that, considering the blip obviously against Pats, the bounce back against Dundalk, and then again on the road in Dublin, losing 1-0 to UCD. I think many in Cork would have assumed anyway that was a 3 points in the bag, and they were disappointed with that.
Absolutely, but you got to take UCD at face value. Although the results probably aren't going their way, and people probably see them as the whipping boys of the league, they'll give any team a good run. They've had a couple of heavy defeats already, but the results maybe haven't been reflecting their performances on the pitch. They were unlucky not to get something against Sligo Rovers in Belfield. Now that's the only time I've seen them in person this year, but that was a huge result for them beating Cork at the weekend. And yet, as you said, Colin Healy would be very disappointed with that. And we were talking about Sligo Rovers being inconsistent there. I think Cork City have just been on an absolute rollercoaster ride so far this year, getting big results in Sligo and in Tala as well. The 4-4 draw with Shamrock Rovers springs to mind. But to lose 1-0 to UCD like that is, like I said, they'll be hoping for it to come back from that very strongly this weekend.
Yeah, we might touch on a couple more of the Premier Division games later on, Brian Morrisroe. Just quickly into the First Division. results from last Friday night. Galway United 6, Bray Wanderers 0. That's 9 wins in a row for John Coffey and Ollie Horgan. Fantastic start for them. Athlone Town 2, Cove Ramblers 0. Waterford 1, Kerry 0. Finn Harps 2, Treaty United 0. And Longford Town 1, Wexford 2. Aisling, you saw the Waterford Kerry game. Another win for Keith Long and his Waterford.
Yeah, really good result for them. 3 in a row now under Keith Long, so they're looking really good. They had a bit of a shaky start to the season, but they're up there now in second. They're just after going past Bray. Yeah, I mean, Kerry was actually really surprised with the result because Kerry, as we know, bottom of the league, only 2 points this season, and obviously they haven't been looking great. They're a brand new team. You wouldn't expect them to be coming into the league absolutely brilliant, but Waterford, like, they had so many chances. They should have scored about 30 goals, honestly. Roland Adua was one who kind of was doing a lot of creative passing stuff down the wing and into the box, but there just seemed to be nobody there to meet it. And yeah, it was surprising that they didn't come away with more there, Watford. But no, still a really good result. And but yeah, as I was saying with Kerry, I was really impressed actually. Wayne Guthrie in the goal was so busy the whole night, especially in the first half. He was just having balls flying at him from everywhere. Like, it was fair play to him because it was a tough night on him. But Kerry have a really young side, and like Billy Dennehy was saying before the game that like he has such a big squad now, and they all seem to be fit and wanting to play, and it's really nice to see on his side that they're so eager and they're so like they're showing like such good impressions in training that he has his pick at the pack now. So Kerry are playing Galway at home actually at the weekend, so that's going to be a tough one on them, but we'll see what they come out with on that.
Has there been a noticeable improvement in Waterford's play since Keith Long's gone in?
Yeah, absolutely, and they've a couple of people back from injuries now as well. Dara Power was there on the bench, and Chris Clark came on actually in the second half, and he actually changed the game, to be honest. So they're looking definitely better than what they were at the start of the season. And they're home to Athlone actually next weekend, so you'd expect another 3 points there. That'd be 4 in a row. So yeah, looking good.
If you're a Kerry supporter, can you see the first National League win coming soon?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't say this weekend now, but definitely it is coming soon. I mean, especially playing that well against against Waterford, really showed how they're improving. And I can see them. I definitely can't see them staying on 2 points for much longer.
Your own then Wexford then winning 2 on the way in the roads of Longford, a good result.
Yeah, it was a good result because they're kind of two teams that are kind of level at the minute in terms of quality, and Wexford were just 2 points ahead of Longford before the game. So it was always going to be a tight game, but as Donal was saying, the rain on Saturday was absolutely horrific, and like it was probably the worst half of football I've seen. But you know, weather conditions were so bad. I mean, there was puddles on the pitch up in Bishopsgate, and weren't even sure if there was going to be a second half because it was so bad. But they came out, the rain eased off. Longford got the goal first in the second half, so they went ahead, and then Wexford pulled 2 back. Aaron Dobbs got the 2, but there were kind of 2 scrappy goals, I would say. But yeah, Wexford, I mean, they looked good definitely in the second half, and things are improving. I mean, they have a few injuries. Injuries have really kind of dented their season, to be honest. But there's a few people coming back. I mean, Reece Webb came back into the side, and he was just fantastic down the wing. And Brandon McCann was actually on the bench, so I'm hoping he'd be playing at the weekend because he played really well against Kerry in that home win on the Patrick's Day fixture, and he got injured. So hopefully see him back in the starting 11 shortly. But yeah, Ethan Boyle actually was playing kind of more forward. I think that worked really well because he's like, you know, he's really strong at the back, but I think playing forward he kind of changed the cycle a little bit, and yeah, couple of scrappy goals, but it was definitely a good win. And they're playing Finn Harps actually on Friday, so they're just 1 point ahead of Harps, so that'll be a tight game, but looking positive, I would say.
What was the crowd like at Bishopsgate on Saturday night? Because I know there was a bit of stuff on social media about attendances in the first division, and Longford's attendance was the lowest so far in the league. So was it a poor attendance again on Saturday night?
Yeah, there was 400 there, so obviously not the best when we're looking at the rise in attendances over the league. But again, it was horrific weather, so I wouldn't blame anyone for staying in on Saturday night. But yeah, 400 in the crowd. But yeah, in terms of Wexford, we're seeing a lot more. We're actually seeing a big increase in attendances, I have to say, this season. Like a lot of it is to do with the kind of changes in the background of the club as well. You know, there's a lot more involvement in the community now, and you know, there's teams coming in and getting to see the games and getting in mascots and everything, and it's just a really good setup out there now this season. So yeah, it's looking positive out there.
Just to come in there on the attendances, Luke, Longford Town actually bottom of the average attendance rate so far in the first division, with 756 is their average crowd. Now, I know I actually touched on the weather. You know, 400 of the crowd is pretty dismal, but like, you know, I'm sure the weather did play its part in that. But 756 as an average attendance is pretty low and pretty surprising for a club that's as well supported as Longford Town are. And just looking at those figures as well, Kerry is probably the most impressive. They're fifth in the attendance rate. Their average attendance is 1,194, which is quite impressive, you know, for a new club just coming in and starting from scratch, basically. Only have 2 points on the board. And as Aisling said as well, no doubt that their first win is around the corner somewhere. But those would be the figures that probably jumped out to me just looking at the stats, like Waterford top on 2,283 and then Galway on 2,064. You know, you'd expect big crowds for those, but the likes of Bray with 822, Wexford on 805, Athlone on 810, and then the bottom two are Treaty on 789 and Longford Town on 756. You know, I think there's just a couple of very surprising statistics in those average club attendances for the first division so far this season.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting. Obviously, we've mentioned before on the podcast that the attendance is going up, and it's great to see throughout the league. And hopefully, going forward, obviously, Longford's crowds and so on go up. Touching on Kerry there, obviously, it's fantastic. I suppose the only throwing in a bit of skepticism is I remember when Captain Teedy first joined the league in 2015. They joined the league, if I'm right, 2015, 16. And it was a similar case. They had nearly 1,000 fans, 1,200 at games, and you see what happened over the couple of years, the numbers declined. So fantastic start, but just hope they can maintain that over the next 2 to 3 years. As I mentioned earlier on, Galway had an emphatic win 6-0 against Bray. Paul Corcoran, our report for extra time, Collop won the goal scores. Vince Borden, let's have a listen.
Vincent, well done on tonight's game. You must be happy with that result. Yeah, great result. Good performance from us against a good opponent. So we're happy that we got the 3 points today and played well. And so, look, for yourself, you know, it's a special night to score any goal. So you grabbed 2 goals tonight. You know, how did you feel with your contribution tonight? Look, massive contribution, basically. Yeah. I think it doesn't really matter who scores. I think for the first couple of goals and for the whole until he got subbed off, I think Walter was brilliant today. Stephen was pressing everybody. He turned the ball over so many times. He was getting behind and created a lot of chances for me. I think he got my assist for the second one, and maybe even the first one, I forget. And he just works his butt off every day. So players like that we need. Yeah, and you know, obviously it's you know, plays like that, and as you said, you know, Walter didn't score tonight, as you said, but he contributed significantly to a couple of goals. You know, I mean, that it's probably a factor in the fact you've won 9 games. You know, what's it like in that dressing room? It must be like pretty special at the moment. I know you don't want to get ahead of yourself, but you know, 9 games in a row winning, it must be pretty good in there at the moment. No, yeah, we're very, very level headed. I mean, we don't really mention any time like, oh, we've won 9 games or anything like that. It's just sort of on to the next one. Kerry's next week away. Tough place to go probably, and we'll see if we can get a result there. And that's the thing, just on Kerry, I suppose, you know, and Waterford are pretty, you know, still most people look on and think they're the main rivals, you know, against you for the league. And look, they just managed to get over the line with a 1-0 win. So I know you did very well against them earlier this season, but that must be on your mind. I don't even have much of a chance to look at the results, but that must be on your mind ahead of next week as well. Yeah, we'll definitely keep it in the back of our mind that we got a good result against them at home, but I think every game's a new game. Every game's a battle out there. So we won 6-0 today.
next week at Kerry could be a different story. It could be just getting over the line, whatever it takes, as long as we get 3 points at the end of the 90 minutes. So.
And for yourself then, just more broadly, like you're coming into a league that I don't know how much you knew about the League of Ireland coming in, but you've come in, you've slotted in, you've got your starting spot. What have you made of the league so far since you've come in?
It's a tough league, very physical league. I think I probably came into the best club in the league in terms of organisation, great support staff. The coaching staff is brilliant, and the players are fantastic. I wouldn't have asked for anything more from personality and character-wise. Just great, a bunch of guys in there, and lucky guy.
And I suppose, for yourself, you've come in, and it's been quite the impact, to come in on your first season in the League of Ireland. 7 from 9 games is quite a contribution a quarter of the way through the season. How are you feeling?
Yeah, honestly, I tell you, I'm the luckiest man in Galway. I don't know what the hell's going on. In college, I played 75 games and I scored 4 goals. So I'm not sure what's going on. Yeah. Every time I kick the ball, it goes in the goal. So hopefully it keeps going like that.
Yeah. And lastly then, in the Women's Premier Division last weekend, go to the quick results. Shells 1, Treaty 0, DLR Waves 3, Sligo Rovers 0, Galway 1, Shamrock Rovers 1, Cork City 1, Peamount 2, and Wexford Youths 1, Athlone Town 3. Ashton, really quick, what have you made of the Women's Premier Division so far this season? You're the summarize.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. As a Wexford fan, I'm surprised that they're 4th from bottom at the minute, only on 6 points there. But it's still early days. But obviously, Peamount looking great, and Rovers Galway at the weekend. McDowell actually put up a really good interview there. It's on the site with Savannah McCarthy. She made her Rovers debut after 13 months out injured. So she's looking to push into the Ireland squad for the World Cup. So really interesting stuff there. But yeah, looking at the other fixtures or the other results. Not really that surprising as we go at the minute. As I was saying, only Wexford is really the kind of standout that you're looking at to see what's going on there. I know there's some injuries there and that, but Athlone as well, actually, that I had predicted would win the league this season, but it's not looking that way so far. They're currently there in 6th. So some interesting fixtures coming ahead. The weekend, Rovers and Bows will be huge, and Wexford and Peamount. Peamount are home. That's always a really, really dramatic fixture. So that'll be a good one to watch, I would say.
And as Ashley mentioned there, we have a bit of audio from the game from Savannah McCarthy, who was chatting to McDowell first, and enjoy the music in the background too.
You must be delighted to be back on the pitch. It's been a long journey for you.
Yeah, I suppose being out 30 months, obviously, it's a long road back, but I suppose for me it was obviously just get my fitness back, do the rehab, and when I come back, I'm back for good.
You were itching to be back. I know you were involved in the squad the last few weeks, but obviously you're pacing your time to get back onto the pitch, but you're ready this week.
Yeah, I suppose I've had a good few weeks training.
Yeah.
And obviously, like I said, with an ACL, it's hard in terms of you've no contact for a while and you went full contact. But yeah, for me, I suppose now I've been training probably 6 or 7 weeks. Yeah. So now for me, it's just about getting games and getting minutes.
And how have you found being with Rovers? It's obviously a different setup than you've had with your previous clubs like Rovers in terms of the setup at Roadstone, the training, the gym, and that kind of setup.
I suppose for me, it's been an unbelievable setup. I suppose in terms of the players, the management. They're top class coaches, and then like that again, we did one of the best teams in the league.
And have you been involved in any of the home-based training sessions with the other players with the national team?
No, for me, I suppose it was just getting back full training with Rovers and like that. I've only been in probably 3 weeks, and obviously for me, I came back in full training, win there away in Australia. So for now, for me, it's just about winning the minutes.
Yeah, there weren't many players around when in the last couple of weeks. So many Rovers players have involved, the 3 with the senior team and a lot with the under-19 team. It's maybe been a bit different over the last week in terms of training.
Yeah, I suppose for me, for the players, it's unbelievable. It's supposed to have eight girls away with under-19s, 3 of the girls in with the seniors, Lana getting her first call-up. Listen, it's unbelievable. I suppose that's what you want, is to be playing with the national team, and obviously for the girls now it's a big year, and obviously the World Cup and stuff coming up as well. A lot of girls are going to try to be pushing themselves to get back into the squad.
And what about yourself? I know you'll say it's about getting game time with the club side, but is there an ambition? With the World Cup coming up, you obviously been involved and played with Vera Pauw's side and before. What's your thinking on that?
suppose to me, yeah, of course, it's trying to get myself on that plane for the World Cup. But for me right now, obviously, it's trying to get up, build my minutes, get in with the home-based training session, and see it go from there.
And just reflecting on the game today, it was a tough game against Galway. They've been really good this season. They've obviously beaten Shells earlier in the season. You had to come from a goal behind. You got on in the second half. Jamie Thompson got a really good equaliser. You pressed hard, almost got a winner, but just not quite.
Yeah, I suppose, listen, Jamie's been class for us all season. She's been scoring in nearly every single game now. I suppose, obviously, come to Galway, it's never easy. And I know that even with being with Galway last year, they were a hard team to break down. And I suppose defensively, they're well set up and they're well organised. And it was always about us being patient and just waiting for the right moment. And obviously, Jamie pops up and scores another cracker.
Coming up next now, we have Brian Morrisroe, so stay tuned.
And there's kind of a lot of grumbling about maybe we don't have enough Premier League players, but in terms of the Championship, But
what's the point in grumbling about it?
But the step
I can't hold about it, can I? If they're not playing the Premier, what's the point of making grumbling?
The step up to international football from the Championship is it easily managed?
Well, I take you back to when we played in 2002. What's the point of making grumbling? We had lads who were all at the bottom of the Premier, real scrapping away. Kince and Matty Holland and Gary Breen, who hadn't even got a club. What's the point of making grumbling? So I don't subscribe to that. You just whatever it is, whatever I've got, I'll get them together and make the best of them and try and make sure we qualify. Grumbling is not one of the things I do.
You can subscribe to each new episode of the ExtraTime.ie Sportscast on iTunes. Please give a rating or add a comment there to let us know your views.
Welcome back to the second half. Donal is still alongside me, and now we're delighted to welcome onto the show Brian Morrisroe. Brian, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
You were telling us off the air there, we've an ExtraTime.com exclusive. You're coming out of retirement again?
Yeah, a bit of a comeback again. This is probably about 5 or 6 comebacks now. As I was just saying, just thinking there, I was 51 years of age yesterday, so I've been doing a bit of coaching for the last few years. I was actually in Cherry Orchard doing a couple of schoolboy teams, and I finished that a couple of years ago, and I was playing over 35s football and stuff like that. So my knee hasn't been great. Played a few Rovers games, actually. We've a Rovers Legends team. We play some charity games down around the country and stuff like that. So I'm signed for my local team, that local enough team at Temple Oak United. They've got a decent 35s teams. They actually won 3 cups last year. So, and I know a good few of the lads up there. Barry Leach is up there. Mick Leach's son, ex-Rovers, obviously. So there's a bit of I know a lot of the lads up there, and they've been asking me to play. So I said I'd give it a go. Hopefully, if the knee allows, that is. So that's the plan.
Did you pass the medical?
Yeah, no medical. They just kind of said, "How's the body?" And I said, "I'll give it a go." I explained about a bit of trouble with the knee, and they're more than happy to have me. Apparently, so they're telling me anyway. I don't know. We'll see. They might change their mind in a few weeks when they see that I can't run anymore. We'll see. We'll give it a laugh.
And Brian, as well, you just mentioned there, just while we were having a wee chat before we started recording, that you're doing a bit of academy work as well with some of the clubs in Dublin. What kind of age groups would you be dealing with at that level?
Well, currently, I had been doing Leinster Senior League football, and then I had a bit of that sort of stopped before Christmas. And then my old friend Mick Byrne, who was my Shamrock Rovers manager back in the day, he asked me, he says, "Would you like to come up and do an hour on a Saturday morning?" So it's kind of 5 and 6 year olds, young lads up in Fairhouse, Carmel, up in Fairhouse, and it's really enjoyable. It's great.
And I suppose that's one kind of big difference in the league over the last couple of years as well, is like the big emphasis on clubs to have their own academy and stuff, and kind of promote from within. Like, I'm a Sligo man myself, so you see, like, Sligo, the conveyor belt there has been massive. Like, the likes of Johnny Kenny springs to mind and stuff. Like, do you reckon that's one of the big differences now in the league between, I suppose, back when you were playing and where it is today?
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. Absolutely, 100% it is, because when I think of my own career in football, there was no academies back when I was a boy, and I was playing for my local team, Manortown, and we played in low leagues and stuff like that. So you're not exactly in the shop window, you're not getting proper coaching. So you just, when I touched on, I was coaching up in Cherry Orchard. I've seen firsthand the Shamrock Rovers Academy up in Kingswood, and it's fantastic. And it gives the kids a sense of professionalism before they become professional, if you know what I mean. So they're already professionals in their mind, nearly because they've got the right facilities. The right coaches, they're getting the right education off the pitch as well, and it's just fantastic. It's a joy to see. It's really great, and I just wish, as like every guy at my age would say, "Oh, I wish I had that facility when I was a kid." But basically, it's great to see us catching up because the Europeans are way ahead of us on that front. You know what I mean? So it's been a long time coming, but it's the future is bright. Definitely, it's definitely the way to go, and it's already shown in that the likes of Johnny Kenny and the likes of those guys going from academy into the first team now, and not necessarily going abroad. They're staying here in the league, and it's brilliant. It's fantastic.
When you're looking at yourself now coaching and you have a look in the mirror after the session, is there any coach you look at in particular has had a great effect on you? Maybe Brian Kerr pops into mind.
Well, Brian obviously is the first one that comes to mind because he's such a legend in our game. You know, he's been so successful. He's worked with so many players throughout all different levels of football, and right up as far as the international team, which was delighted that he got the job. And I genuinely thought he could have got a little bit more time. But the likes of Brian, obviously, Noel O'Reilly was my coach at Pats as well. So they had a great partnership, and it certainly worked for us in our 96 league winning campaign. And those few years around that was phenomenal. The club was in great hands with those two guys. Yeah, Liam Buckley was also a huge influence for me. He was I touched on playing my local Manortown. Liam was a Manortown man as well, and I remember being an under 10 player for Manortown, and I got Player of the Year. And Liam was the guest of honour at it because he was playing in probably Spain at the time, Santander or one of the Belgium or wherever he was playing. He was playing in Europe at the time, and he was home to present the trophies, and he presented me with an under 10 Player of the Year award. And I'll always remember that. And Liam has always had a fondness for me. He was the one that brought me to Pats, actually. So he would have encouraged Brian Kerr to have a look at me and take a chance on me, basically, because I was playing Leinster Senior League football with Manortown at the time. Again, not a great level. I wasn't even the top league at the time, but Liam knew of me from playing with me at Manortown and seeing me score some good goals and doing quite well, and got me down to Pats around 92, I think it was, and played in the reserve team for probably a season. Got into the first team a couple of times, and even the first year, I think, but that was 93, 94, and then 95 was just, I was pretty much a regular from 94, 95 onwards, and obviously the 96 is a fantastic year for us, yeah. But back to your question, the coaches that I've come across, Cyril Walsh is another one. He was my reserve team manager at Pats. Fantastic coach. Because back in my school boy days, I wouldn't have had any good coaches because, again, it's like the facilities weren't there, the coaches weren't there. That's the way it was. So not too many great coaches throughout my career, but the few that stood out were Brian and Noel and Cyril and Liam, obviously, and stuff like that. So yeah, some good guys out there.
Would you say then, growing up then, obviously as a young lad, it was more just playing on the street and learning that way than actually the kind of learning from a coach?
Absolutely. I was a street footballer. Absolutely. We played poles. There was this thing we used, the lampposts on the road. We used to dodge traffic, and to score a goal, you had to hit the lamppost. And that was street football was absolutely the way I learned to play football. I was also lucky in the sense that my mum and dad's back garden was quite long, and it had a garage. I had a stone wall garage, and it was the exact same size as a full-size goal. So all day, every day, I was out in my back garden whacking the ball against that wall like hundreds, thousands of times a day. So that's how I learned to kick the ball properly, because that's where I learned my football, on the street and in my back garden, basically.
And Brian, do you think there's still a place in the game for that kind of street footballer, that lad, the young fella who has a bit of magic in him? Like, you see, like we just touched on it there, the professionalism of the league and the academies, which is great to see. The league is moving in the right direction, but like sometimes you think, is there still a place for that, like kind of wee maverick on the wing that can produce something out of nothing and win a game on a sixpence for a team?
Absolutely, because I think I see a lot of kids being overcoached as well, whereas they're not allowed to play their natural way, whereas what comes natural to them. So I absolutely would encourage that, and not go too heavy on the coaching manuals and such. The facility's great, to have good coaches is great, but let the lad express himself. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be giving out to a fella for doing something that's not in the textbook. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's grand. Thanks. Sorry, my wife's checking me to see if I have my iPad working. So absolutely, I would encourage kids not to go so much out of the manual as such. Let them express themselves, and it's great to see kids doing their own thing, because that's what stands out. You know, you see, I've recognised kids that remind me of me when I was a boy, and I've said, wow, you don't coach those guys. They don't need coaching to an extent. They need encouragement and certain education, you know what I mean, as regards their discipline and other stuff. But like, as regards just freedom of play and expressing themselves just naturally, natural ability will always come through. It's great to see, which I love. So I'd encourage that all day,
And I suppose, Brian, you'd be able to speak on this, being a former winger, that a lot of the time now, even look at the Irish national teams, that there's kind of a dearth of wingers. Like obviously Mikey Johnston came into the squad very recently for Ireland, and the difference he made, even only off for 15 minutes, is running at players. You don't see it very often these days. It's very much, they're not, maybe, as you said, the overcoaching comes in and players aren't encouraged to take on a player. It's more, keeping the ball in possession, and it's actually killing the craft or the creativity or the guile, as Eamon Dunphy would say, a young player going by a player. It's kind of taken out of the game like that. Absolutely. It's great to see that young lad Johnson. It's like a breath of fresh air. You see someone coming in like that. It's something different. Again, it's not like looking at, no disrespect to James McLean, but he looks like he's one-dimensionally. He kind of does what he's learned to do, which is beat your man or get in and get stuck in and whip a ball into the ball. Your man Johnson just seems to do something off the cuff, and it's great to see. Fantastic. Yeah, I love that. Like the best in the world is Messi. Like, he's a street footballer. Just on, I suppose you touched on there earlier on that your move to Pats. When before you obviously getting into Pats League internationally, before that, was it just simply playing locally? Was there ever a chance to go abroad, or was it just playing with your local team? And obviously locally, you had a connection with him and got you in the Pats. There was no because I was playing with Manortown in kind of low leagues, and I went to Lord Celtic then at around 14 or so. And as soon as I went to Lord Celtic, there was a bit of interest. I think there was an Arsenal scout having a look. Bill Darby, God rest him. And there was a trial for Ireland at one point when I was under 15 and stuff like that. But I was up against the likes of Davy Collins. Now, I was a small little guy. I was pretty short. Davy Collins was probably 6 foot tall at that stage when he was 14 years of age. So he got into the squad instead of me. Again, I should have played at a higher level at that age, and I regret that, like, you know what I mean? Because people say to me, why weren't you in that international team? Because I didn't play for the Lord's Sports team. I didn't have the drive I didn't have the direction at the time. My parents weren't too pushy on me as well. They just let me play and go and enjoy my football. They knew I was good, but I mean, I was probably in the wrong place to be picked for the internationals side at the time. I got a trial, and that was that. Didn't hear any more. It wasn't until I was about 24 then, again, it was because I was doing very well in League of Ireland, that there was some interest from England and stuff like that. I think Leeds were in and stuff, like a few teams were looking at me, but that's all it was. Niall Quinn, who's a good friend of mine, actually, my dad actually wrote a letter to Niall in Manchester. He was in Manchester City at the time, and he had Howard Kendall come over and looking at me and stuff like that. So, but again, unfortunately, nothing became of it, because I think at 24, when I was doing very well in League of Ireland, I was too old at that stage, where you had to have been gone at 16 or 17 to get a chance. I think 24, they were probably thinking, whereas nowadays, fellas are going at 23, 24, because I suppose the clubs are taking a chance of guys, the late developers, whatever it might be. But listen, that's my gripe. It may not have worked for me. It's maybe a blessing in the sky that I didn't go. I could have gone and hated it over there, because I was quite an immature lad. I wouldn't have had the head for going over to England. It's a very tough
from what I gather, it's a very, very tough place to be when you're even looking at Ronnie Whelan coming home talking about his time over there. It was a very lonely, lonely place. And look at the career he had. It was very, incredible career. So it's not for everybody. And that's why it's better nowadays. I suppose kids are more educated and they're more aware of what's going on over there. But I certainly wouldn't have been. So maybe it's just as well I didn't go, because I could have been turned off football, which like some of the other kids are. They come home disillusioned because they haven't made it. They feel like they're a failure. That could well have happened to me, so.
Do you think it's better for the league then, in that sense, that kids are kind of, I suppose, they can't really go over to the UK until they're 18 now, thanks to Brexit, new rules, all that kind of stuff? Is it better for the league that young lads are kind of staying over here and kind of learning their craft at a slightly younger age, probably developing a little bit better as footballers, and then if there's a shot of a career for them in the UK, they can go and grab it if they want it? Like, do you think that that's better for the league, or is it kind of better to see kind of lads staying around for another wee while?
Well, it's better all around. I think it's better for the league, for one, because the clubs have a chance of developing these players, and if they can play at 18, because there's kids in the Pats team now at 17 years of age, and it's brilliant. And also, if a kid goes over at 18, 19, he is more mature. He's a man. He's like, boys going over 13 and 14. It's really difficult for a kid to go over at that stage. You know what I mean? They're not emotionally ready for it. You know what I mean? So it's better all round. Definitely better all round, in my view.
Brian, what was it like? Just going back to that 92-93 time when you made the move to Pats. What was it like going into that dressing room? Because obviously, at the time, they won the league in 1990. A lot of the players are still there. Obviously, at the time, they were homeless too in terms of playing with Harold's Cross. A lot of problems off the field. What was it like playing for the club in that dressing room at the time? That dressing room was
amazing. It wasn't probably when I walked in the first day. It was kind of daunting, very much so, because again, as I said, I was kind of an immature lad. I didn't grow up till I was still growing up, I suppose, at 51 now. But I mean, at the time, thinking back, I was very nervous. And listen, you just knuckle down and looking around the dressing room. Some of the guys had gone, but still Johnny Mack was there, Paul Ozam, and I remember training up around Walkinstown Avenue, which is not far from my home here. I used to cycle up to Walkinstown Avenue, and we'd do our pre-season training, and Pat Kelch would be there, and oh my God, it was fantastic. And I just felt like I'll give it my best shot. I knew I had a bit of ability, but and thankfully it worked out. But it was just, I was in awe of the players that were there, and obviously Brian was not intimidating sort of manager, but he's just such a strong character, and I wasn't used to that. I'd never had a decent manager in my life, bar a couple of maybe a coach down in Lord Celtic that was a very good coach. But Brian was my first proper manager. I was 22 years old. You know what I mean? So not a lot of fellas can say that they've never had a decent manager until they're 22. It's like starting football at 22 for me. But it was great to be in the dressing room, obviously, to be surrounded by so many great players. It wasn't ideal that we were playing in Harold's Cross, as Brian would have said. There was dog shit on the pitch and stuff like that. I don't remember the dog shit on the pitch, but I remember playing for the reserves down there for a season or two and getting the first few first team appearances when we were playing. I vaguely remember playing Derry and a few teams down there. It was fantastic to be involved. Crowds at a game, which I was also unused to as well. So yeah, great time, great times. And that I was part of the going back to Richmond Park around, I think it was that 93 or 4, and the atmosphere around Inchicore at the time, and the reception we got going back in there with the tiny little shed sort of stand that was there, and the new pitch was laid. That was fantastic. That was a great occasion.
And Brian, obviously coming into that Pats team, as you said, was like a bit daunting, or maybe a bit of an honour for you. But was there a League of Ireland team that you supported when you were growing up, or were you just kind of kicking around and seeing what happened?
My dad used to bring me down to Milltown the odd time to watch a few games. I remember going down with a few of my older brothers. My brother's about 3.5 years old, and a couple of his mates used to get down to watch Pats and Harold's Cross. I remember going down when I was about 19 or 20. I hadn't followed League of Ireland, to be honest, because it's not like it's now. Nowadays, it's on the TV a lot, and it's in the paper, and it's online an awful lot more. And which is fantastic, by the way. The coverage wasn't there back then, so I was more like every other young lad. I was following teams in England, Liverpool and Leeds. I was into and watching the old English football and Match of the Day and stuff. That's all that was my football then. I didn't go to watch League of Ireland, but yeah, to be called up to a League of Ireland, I knew it was a huge step up for me, and I just had to give it my best shot, and thankfully it did work out. So I did well. So no regrets. It's great.
When did you feel you broke into the past things? Now you mentioned you went into the reserves after signing. When did you feel established in the first team?
Well, Sonny, the first couple of years, yeah, I probably made 3 to 5 appearances. First, I think I made my debut up in Dundalk, and yeah, that was a great achievement. But I wasn't taken for granted that was it. I suppose first time I really felt a brilliant, fantastic pre-season. I scored against lots of English clubs in a pre-season in 94, 95, I think it was. Scored against Southampton and Tranmere and all the English clubs, Kilmarnock and stuff like that. Scored 4 or 5 goals in about 6 games and stuff like that. And I was playing on the left side of midfield and stuff like that. So that year and the beginning of that season, going into the league campaign, I really felt, yeah, I've made it now. You know what I mean? I was regularly in the first team, and that was fantastic. That was really fantastic. And of course, we went on with a brilliant season. So yeah, it was a sudden rise type of thing, from going from non-league football to reserves, and then suddenly you're in the first team within kind of a year and a half. So it was fantastic. Yeah, so the pre-season that I had really stood to me because I did so well against such brilliant opposition like Matt Letizia and all the guys that I would have played against and stuff like that. And managers like Lord McMenemy coming over to say to you, congratulations for scoring a wonder goal against them and stuff like that. So I kind of felt from there on, that was probably my springboard into doing really well. I felt really at home then. I felt like, yeah, I've established myself now. So
what's your memories from the 95-96 season?
Wow. Well, started with a good cup run as well. I scored a couple of FAI cup goals and stuff like that. The season we just had fantastic momentum because we were coming back. We were sort of scoring late goals against teams. I remember Gareth, our goalkeeper, was sent off one night, and one of the midfielders, Christy McGallagher, actually went in goal, and we ended up winning the game 3-2. With crazy nights. I was been sprung from the bench quite a bit as well during that season, and I was coming on to change games. And then towards the latter half of the season, I was starting games at the start of the season, then sort of a bit more substitution, sort of like a super sub, sort of. Brian was bringing me from the bench to change games, and it worked a treat. Brian obviously knew what he was doing, but then I was obviously playing. I was more starting games than not, but the season was just. I remember going to Derry. Actually, one of the only games we properly professionally got ready for. We went up to Derry the night before. We stayed in a hotel, and we got battered 5-1 the next day in the Brandywell. I was like, we did everything professionally, and all the other games we didn't do professionally. We probably won, but we went unbeaten from that game, 5-1 up in Derry. I think we went 19 or 20 games unbeaten after that to win the league. So that was a major turning point. That was a huge memory of that year. It was obviously a great year, but yeah, the beating up in Derry that time, you're thinking, Jesus Christ, we haven't got a hope here. Like, how can we go and get battered 5-1? But in fairness to us, we dug in and we were unbeaten right up until, Jesus, might have been to the end of the season then. But obviously the league winning it up in Dundalk that night was a couple of days after my birthday, I think. Again, it was a ding-dong of a match. I think we went 1-0 down. Did we go? Yeah, we went 1-0 down. Shitty goal. And Ricky scored with a header off Peter Carpenter's cross. Was teeming down with rain. Actually, I was nearly chopped in two that night. Richie Purdy nearly broke my leg in two. He was sent off after about 5 minutes. So loads of different memories of the season, but mostly positive in the sense that the players we had, Eddie Gormley and Paul Ozam and John McDonald, I'd never forget Johnny roaring at us and stuff like that. If things weren't going well, GC he'd get stuck into you, I tell you. So there was loads of strong characters in the team that really helped us with our momentum, and the determination of the team was unbelievable because we really ended up deserving to win the league because we bashed other teams really. We'd everything basically. We had real good leaders on the team and with a good bit of quality, obviously. And Ricky up front was banging in goals for fun. Our player Liam Buckley was still playing. I think he was 36 at the time. He was sort of player assistant manager to Brian and stuff like that. So we had a good mixture of youth. Myself and Martin Riley were the young lads in the team. Mark Mulroney and stuff like that. Young lads. Mark was back from Millwall, good pal of mine. And so we a good mixture of youth and obviously the elder lemons like Liam and Ozo and Johnny Mack and all. It was a fantastic team. Really brilliant team, yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the players there, like Paul Sam, Eddie Gormley, for example. Like, how good are those guys in the team?
These guys were unreal. Great characters too. Ozo was ghastly. Probably never trained in his life. He used to tell Brian he's going to the dentist instead of training and stuff like that. What's that got to do with your... you'd say, if he had a dodgy knee, you'd say, fair enough, but he's going to get teeth out and stuff like that. Gas man. But yeah, brilliant player. Eddie Gormley, mercurial midfielder, like Noel Myrna that protected Eddie. Eddie had all the flair, and Noel just protected Eddie in the sense that he broke down the other team and let Eddie go and play and pick out passes and score free kicks and stuff like that. And we had great centre halves. Johnny Mack, as I keep mentioning, and Dave Campbell were fantastic centre halves. They probably played every game in the league. They made them missed one or two games all season. And yeah, Ricky, as I said up front, was phenomenal, banging in goals, and Martin Riley was great too. He did great because, again, as I said, Martin came out of league, non-league football. I think he was with Ashdown Villa or one of them teams, and I came from Martown. And yeah, great mix of players. Yeah, fantastic mix of players. Yeah, and great coaches and management and stuff. And of course, the fans were fantastic. Richmond Park on a Friday night was outrageous at that time. It was 4,000 and 5,000 people at a game, and especially the Dublin Derbies. I remember a big drum at those one night 3-3, and it was just an incredible night. So yeah, lots of really good memories, and great place to be on a Friday night. As I said, Richmond was rocking. Fantastic.
And Brian, just on your own role in the team, like you mentioned that you were kind of the man to kind of come off the bench and kind of change the game a bit, more of a super sub kind of role. I'd imagine like obviously every player wants to be starting games and playing as much football as they can, but was there kind of like an understanding that like that was your role? You were going to be the man to kind of bring something different to the team, and like were you happy to do that as well?
Well, yeah, in a sense, yes, I was happy to be doing it because it was working, but I was also, no, I probably exaggerated. I wasn't on the bench that often. The more I think of it, I was probably started more games than I started on the bench. I probably started as number 11 more often than not. But a lot of the times when I was on the bench, it seemed to work that I was coming off the bench, and I used to go with players and stuff like that. I think a lot of defenders, I was quick and I was tricky on the wing, and I opened up defences, and it worked that way. And as I said, whatever works, you're happy with, you know what I mean? And the results were going our way, the fans were on our side, and we just had that, as I said, we had the momentum week in, week out. We were winning games that we probably no right to win, and yeah, it was just we were in a groove basically, and we were unstoppable. Yeah.
Brian, you mentioned obviously a couple of times chat with Brian Kerr. What were his best characteristics as a manager or a coach?
Well, funny, when I'm coaching the team now, I sort of whisper, and the lads are saying, "Why is he whispering?" And I'd say, "You know why I'm whispering?" I said, "Because you're listening. Because you know when someone's talking lowly, you have to strain to hear them." Brian was very calm before a game. He'd talk very low, and I said, "Jeez, I really have to." And psychologically, I don't know if he was doing it subconsciously or whatever, or whether he was doing it purposely, but it certainly made you listen, because his character, that's one of his characteristics. He was also crazy. When you were 1-0 down at half time, he'd tell you, he'd tell you off in no uncertain terms to listen, get the finger out, he'd be really, really, trying to motivate us, basically, because sometimes players don't perform to the best of their ability and things aren't going well in the game, and you need a manager to really, grab you by the scruff and grab the whole team by the scruff of the neck. So Brian, tactically astute, he had it all, and obviously Noel with him as well. Noel was a very calming sort of influence, very, again, soft-spoken, but very, very effective, great advice. But Brian's, I think Brian, when you think of it, Brian's probably his biggest strength was his knowledge of the game and knowledge of every other player in every other team, in every other part of the country. He knew about absolutely everything in the league. And when players realise that your manager knows everything, he gains respect. And when you've got respect from your players, they'll go through a wall for you, you know what I mean? And that's, I think, what really stood to us, because Brian had the dressing room. You know what I mean? Absolutely had the dressing room, and every single player, he got the best out of everyone because of the respect he commanded. So, yeah, that's probably my biggest memories of Brian's, what he has in his locker, basically. Yeah, great manager.
Obviously going on to win the league in 96, and Brian Kerr leaves. What was that like, the time in the dressing room when he accepts the job in the Irish setup? I assume the dressing room was the fate of the time, or what was going through the thoughts?
Yeah, well, I can't really remember because it's so bloody long ago. It's 25 years ago. It was a bit of a shock at the time, obviously, because he was Mr. St. Patrick's Athletic. He was the man. There's no question about that. So, but then again, you can't stand in his way because an opportunity, another door opens type of thing, and good luck to him type of thing. And as I said to you earlier, I was absent. I think everyone would have been delighted that he went as far as he did, the whole way to the top, basically. And I genuinely think he should have got more time. That's another day's argument. But the shock at the time was a huge change. And Pat Dolan, I think he'd been the chief executive officer of the club at the time. Pat would have done sterling work in the office and promoting the club off the pitch. Great, really bubbly character. And he became the manager. So things changed from there. For me personally, it changed in the sense that it became, I shouldn't be giving out about this, but Pat sort of, he tried to make it more professional. As much as he thought that the league should be going professionally, he thought everyone should be full-time and stuff like that. In hindsight, he was right. But I don't think a lot of the players were ready for that. And a lot of players would have been sort of saying, I'm not sure about this. And he wanted us training 4 or 5, 6 times a week in the gym and stuff like that. And people had jobs. I had a job at the time. I still do, thankfully. But it was a part-time gig at the time. You worked 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and you did your football. And Pat wanted, you know what I mean, wanted you around the club every hour that you bloody had. So it didn't wash with a few players. I know that for a fact, and maybe it wasn't suitable for others, whatever. But that's the way it was. It was a bit of a. Now listen, Pat, the squad did change over the next year or two. Pat would have got a good few guys in from England and stuff like that, and they went on and won 2 more leagues. And I played the following season, 96, 97, and I actually broke a bone. I think I broke a bone in my foot that year, and Pat wanted me to take a cortisone injection, and I told him, no, Pat, I'm not into that, thanks. My foot, I think, is broken. So there's a few things like that, and I wasn't fully happy there. And well, I was obviously happy, but I mean, I just wasn't maybe working out as well as it was before. There was definitely a change coming on board. So it came around to 97 then, and Pat wanted me to re-sign, all right, and I very, very, obviously very nearly did, but Mick Borden had been on to me from Shamrock Rovers, and it was very, very tempting to go up there because I felt I needed a change at the time because Pat was evolving at the time, and maybe I said I'd take a new challenge on. And Shamrock Rovers is obviously a very, very glamorous temptation. So that's the way it went. And Mick was building a new squad there, he was signing lots of players from around the country and stuff like that. So that's the way it went. Yeah, for us. Yeah. So that was the end of my Pats days, unfortunately. But yeah, listen, five brilliant years. I'll never, ever forget them.
Obviously, you mentioned going on to Shamrock Rovers in '97. I read before that you found that, I don't put words in your mouth, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's more that thought if the result didn't go away at Rovers, thought the crowd were more on your back, or they were more kind of volatile towards the players. And was that tough as a player? Maybe a Pats, maybe the fans or that are a bit more supportive of you. Is that a correct way of saying it? And then maybe at Rovers there's a bit more pressure due to the fact that they're arguably the biggest club in the country and they expect success immediately. And was that tough to deal with, or how did you feel?
It was really tough. It was really tough. Look, it's like I remember playing one of my first games for Rovers was down the country somewhere against some pub team in a pre-season friendly, and a ball was going out of play one time, and I didn't go for it because I knew it was going to go out of play. But because I didn't go for it, I remember a fan having a go at me on the sideline. There was about 200 people at the game. It was no one at the game. I remember him having a go at me for why didn't you go for the ball? And I was sort of saying, oh, shit, what's that about? And that sort of, my first few months in Rovers was kind of tough because, I don't know, it's like I felt a bit of a scapegoat for sort of some of the negativity that was around coming from the fans, because when you think back, as I said to you, Mick was signing about 8 or 9 players. It was a brand new team. We hadn't quite gelled, and if things weren't going well, that was the reason, because the team was only a brand new team. But the fans were quite impatient, I'll say. But listen, it was only a minority. It was a few of them. But when you're at a game and there's only about 2,000 at a game, it's not like you're in the San Siro and there's 70,000. You can't hear one fella slagging you. When you're at a game in Talca Park or wherever it might be in League of Ireland, you can hear the odd shout because there's, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you do hear the abuse that's coming your way, and it's very off-putting. You're trying your best. You're at a fantastic club with incredible supporters. 99% of the supporters are fabulous, absolutely fabulous. They're fanatical about the club. They love their club, and they have a right to give out. But they're very, very demanding, and they've a right to also expect as well, because listen, it is Shamrock Rovers. They generally tend to sign the best players in the league and stuff like that. They always have good teams. They always, they're always successful. They should be winning leagues and cups regularly and stuff like that. So when they feel that they're not going to get that, they're entitled to, I suppose, have their say. But listen, there wasn't all doom and gloom. As I said, it was only the first couple of months that went like that, and I actually did very well for Rovers as far as I'm concerned, and a lot of the fans would have appreciated that. So there was a little bit of negativity, but that's football. You know what I mean? You have to take it. And I still see some of the fans up there now today, and they're fine. Everyone's grand. They actually slag me when I go up to Tala. A fella told me, he says, "Here, Brian," he says, Inchicore is down that way. So when I'm up in Tala, they said to me, "What are you doing here? Like, you should be down in Inchicore." So they still think I'm more of a Pats man than I am a Rovers man. But listen, it is what it is. I'm still so proud to have played for both of the clubs. Obviously, I had success with Pats in winning the league, and I had 2 fantastic years with Rovers with some great teammates, and playing for Mick Borden was an honour and stuff like that. And playing for those fans for that club is a huge honour. You can't have any regrets. So it was, yeah.
And are you more of a St. Pat's man than a Shamrock Rovers man, Brian?
Yeah. In a nutshell, yes. But listen, I mean, I love going up to Rovers. I love going up watching them. They do things the right way. As I said earlier, the academy, their setup is fantastic. They have a great fan base. The ground looks fantastic at the moment, and that's all great, and that's fantastic, and I'm delighted for them and wish them well all the time. When I go down to Pats, though, I have to be honest, when I go down to Pats, I just feel much more at home. There was some Pats fans down there. Some of them wouldn't like me either. You know what I mean? They'd be saying, "Jeez, well, your man wasn't that great." But I have a lot of positivity down in Pats, and I feel a bit more comfortable going down there. And maybe it's because of the success. And like you never forget where your best days were, in any job or any profession and stuff like that. So I've great memories in Inchicore. So why wouldn't I feel comfortable there? As I said, I will be forever, grateful that I play for both clubs. But, the fact is that the comfort in the St. Pat's, going down to Richmond Park on a Friday night it's hard to beat. It's still fantastic. I love it. I just love it.
Nice.
I suppose the answer is yes to your question. Sorry, I suppose it's busy. Bit of a yes, yeah.
I suppose that kind of brings us nicely onto where the league is at today, just when you mentioned where Shamrock Rovers are at the moment, but how far they've developed, not the best start for them, and it wasn't the best start for St. Pat's either, but they've really pulled it out of the bag, sitting in second place now on 17 points, and then just 5 points separating second from eighth in the league. It's nearly as tight a season as we've seen for years already.
Yeah, and that's great, and it's great for the neutrals and stuff like that, and it keeps everybody interested and stuff like that. I'm surprised Derry have sort of fallen away, and listen, Bohemians had a fantastic start, so it could be one of those seasons where it's a bit of a roller coaster ride for all of the teams. Pats, they had a bit of a dodgy start, and Clancy's under pressure 3 or 4 weeks ago, and now he's in second place. Like, he was second from bottom, and now they're second. And they've really good defensive record. Forrester seems to be back to his best and stuff like that, and they've some fantastic players in there. But Rovers' disciplinary record at the start, I think things happen. You get players sent off, and you can't be expecting to win games with 9 players, 10 players, and that's just unfortunate sometimes. The Rovers might have got a bit of stick for it, but that was undeserved. Like, listen, they went and played Bows there, as I said earlier, in Dalymount, and they weren't the best for the first 25, 20, 30 minutes maybe. But in fairness, their quality, I think Graham Burke has been fantastic so far this season. He's on fire. And obviously you've got Jack Byrne there in the middle who can turn a game at any given time. They've got some fantastic players. Dylan Watts is still a very, very good player and stuff like that. They've good at the back, experienced goalkeeper and stuff like that. So it's going to be one of those seasons maybe where I wouldn't like to be a betting man to see who's going to win it now at this stage. I can't look too far past Rovers, in fairness. They seem to be getting back in the groove now, which was always, you'd expect that because they have so much quality. You know what I mean? It's like it was a bit of a blip at the start, but that's all it was. I feel that's all it was.
What have you made of Pats so far this season, the games you've seen?
Pats, as I said, it's been a funny one because a very, very shaky start. But the last 4 games, what have they scored? About 15 goals in the last, must be 3, 4. Is it 14 or 15 goals in the last 4 games? And like when you think 4 weeks ago, there's a few fans are saying like maybe Clancy shouldn't be here anymore. So listen, it's huge on Friday night coming. If like whoever wins that will get obviously a massive boost psychologically. Now it won't go towards winning the league or anything like that, but it's psychologically it's a momentum builder. Rovers will think they have their momentum back, they have their mojo back after a shaky start, and so will Pats. So Friday night, I'll probably sit in the fence and say it'd probably be a draw. But it could go either way. It could be 3-0 to Pats, it could be 3-0, 4-0 to Rovers. Who knows? Just quality on both sides, really. And as I said, Forrester's back to his best, and he seems to have a Midas touch against Rovers. Let's say I'll never forget his dink over the keeper that time in Richmond Park. It was a fantastic goal. And listen, they've other players, Lennon's around the pitch as well. Very, very good. So Friday night will be interesting. I'm raging I'm not going there. That's the only thing.
You want to get off that fence, Brian? Come on, give us a proper score prediction.
3-1 Pats.
That's far better. Brian, it's been great having you on, and thanks for chatting. We'll chat again soon.
Yeah,
thanks very much, Brian.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a million.
And before we finish up, there's a quick run through the fixtures in the SSE Airtricity League this weekend. Starting with the Premier Division On Friday night, we have Shells v Dundalk, Drogheda United Bowes, Cork City Derry City, Pats Rovers, big game there, and Sligo Rovers UCD, which is a Saturday night game. In the first division, we have Waterford Athlone, Wexford Finn Harps, Cove Ramblers 3, Kerry Galway, and on Saturday again, we have Longford Town v Bray. And in the Women's Premier Division, we have on Saturday, Galway v Sligo Rovers, Treaty United DLR Waves, Peamount Wexford Youth, Shamrock Rovers Bowes, Dublin Derby there. And to finish off the weekend, we have Athlone, Cork City. Be sure to tune in to the extratime.com voice notes podcast this weekend, which we release either Friday night or early Saturday morning to get immediate reaction from the games. Thanks to Brian, thanks to Donal, thanks to Aisling, and we'll chat to you all next week.